Hey, what's up, guys? Alright, so honestly, I'm not exactly sure how I feel about this week's chapter of Black Clover. After reading it twice with two different versions, I'm not exactly sure if I like the chapter or if I dislike the chapter more. It kind of has me confused about exactly how I actually feel about it. And it's mostly because of the fact that, alright, part of me feels like this chapter gave me exactly what I wanted. It had a good amount of action, had great writing, and actually gave us some, more in-depth looks at these characters that we've been following for a while now. But at the same time, it felt like the chapter took a cop out by basically rushing past events that I was actually kind of looking forward to that is set up in the last week's chapter. And the fact that we kind of rushed through it, even though we don't know if it actually might continue in the next week's chapter with these events, but at the same time, the fact that in this chapter we feel like we're rushing through it kind of left me a little disappointed and a little like a bad taste in my mouth about the chapter. So I don't know. I honestly don't know exactly how I should feel about it at this point. Okay, so before we actually get into the actual chapter review, I just want to quickly throw in my prediction that I had before I actually read the chapter of the order that we get these fights that we set up in the last week's chapter, which is basically I figured it would end up being Fugoyan versus Kaiser first, simply because of the fact that we put such an emphasis on that fight at the very end of the chapter. I figured it'd be a great way to start the arc off, especially since it's ever since his character's been introduced, we have not at all seen what Kaiser can do. I was sure that Tabata Yuki actually was itching to actually develop the character a little bit, so I figured all right, we start off with that fight. Then we move on to Mario Leona versus Veto, which again I said that that fight I don't think Mario Leona will actually have a hard time fighting Veto, so the fight will move on pretty quickly, maybe one or two chapters. Then we go on to Asta Mimosa versus Lil, and then finally ending the fights off with Noel versus Fauna. Okay, so we open up the chapter with Fugoyan versus Kaiser fight, which I was actually excited about in the beginning because of the fact that it was the fight I predicted would be first in my prediction or my prediction of the order these fights would go in, and B, for a long time I've wanted to see exactly what Kaiser can do because along with Dorothy, he was one of the few captains that we had no idea what their abilities were. We got Dorothy a few chapters ago, and I was excited to finally get Kaiser since we set him up last week's chapter to figure out exactly what his magic was, especially since at the end of the chapter they put an emphasis on that he's called the kingdom's ultimate defense. So basically what we end up finding out is that Kaiser actually has vortex type magic, which basically lets him take any magical attack that he can withstand and swirl it around his own body, kind of like a tornado effect, like he's in the eye of a tornado and any magical attack that comes around him just becomes part of his own mana, which actually lets him deflect the attacks back at his opponent. Now, normally because of the fact that Fugoyan has Salamander, he actually should be able to bypass Kaiser's vortex magic and actually be able to do damage to him. But because of the fact that Kaiser is being strengthened by Elf mana, he actually is now able to even withstand Spirit type magic, and then he's actually able to take that magic and throw it back at Fugoyan, who even with Mana Skin activated, still ends up taking a lot of damage from the attack. So this is actually a really cool type of magic, and I actually was not expecting this to be Kaiser's ability. I figured it had something to do with like an actual shield, since Fugoyan had called him the shield of the kingdom in the last chapter, or at least in the translation that I read. That's what he called him. But this ability is actually kind of cool and actually is really useful in a world where magic is the main form of attack. The only problem I have with it though is the fact that there's a major backlash to this ability, which is actually something I figured Fugoyan would find out at the end of the chapter, and he actually ends up doing. That while this attack is actually useful against magical attacks, it kind of leaves him open for a physical attack, like if someone just went up to him to punch him, he would kind of be open to that attack. Now, of course, he can use his own mana to basically swirl it around his body to protect him to some extent. But if his opponent can actually hold off or withstand that attack and actually break through the vortex, he can still physically attack Kaiser. So he's actually very vulnerable to that. And like I said, we actually see Fugoyan at the very end of the chapter actually use that tactic of breaking through Kaiser's vortex physically and punching him with his own fist, or not his own fist. I think he uses actually his firearm in that punch, but he actually uses a physical attack to take down Kaiser. Now, this is what actually disappoints me about the chapter, because I was actually really looking forward to seeing exactly what Kaiser could do. And I figure since Tabata Yuki introduced him earlier on in the series, and we are literally just now finding out any information about him, he would be more interested in basically developing the character more and actually fleshing out the fight a little bit more. But instead, we actually end up rushing through it. Now, the other half of this chapter, which I say other half, but it's actually taking place pretty much at the same time, switching back and forth between the two, is the fight going on between Mario Leona and Veto, which is actually the fight I actually wanted to get rushed through. Because of the fact that, like I said, I don't think Veto is actually a good opponent for Mario Leona. Because of the fact that we've already seen Veto defeated. We've already seen basically the extent of his abilities. And there was no indication or nothing that kind of foreshadowed the fact that now that he's in an artificial body, he would be even stronger than he was when they originally defeated him. There's basically, in fact, we kind of got the opposite depending on what translation you're reading. We were confirmed that he was actually weaker than he used to be. So the fact that we have Mereoleona, who is considered one of the strongest persons in the kingdom, fighting off against someone who they've already defeated in the series, I didn't really have any interest in this fight. And it kind of confirmed in the chapter that, yeah, I shouldn't have actually had any interest in it at all, because of the fact that we don't really see Mereoleona be pushed to her limits in this chapter. Like, when she's fighting against him, yeah, she's struggling a little bit because of his speed, his reflexes, and he actually is pretty strong. But we've seen her basically be pushed to her absolute limit earlier on in the arc. And I don't know, it might just be my personal opinion, but when we see her in the parts of the fight that we actually get to see in the chapter, it doesn't actually seem like she's actually having that much of a difficult time fighting him. It seems more like she's actually having fun fighting him than she actually is having a hard time in the fight. So it's kind of just like, well, we don't really need to see this. I'm kind of upset that we took time away from the Fugoyan versus Kaiser fight, and we could, the time we could have took to develop that fight even more, to spend time on this fight instead. And you know what? Now that I think about it, it's actually a little bit disappointing, because we actually see in this chapter when the two of them are fighting that Veto kind of actually respects Mereoleona a little bit in this arc or in this fight, and that's actually something I kind of would like to see develop over the fight, because of the fact that we know from past experience with Veto that he has no respect for anybody. He doesn't really like anybody. He kind of respected Noelle after she damaged him a lot during the Water Temple arc, but he has no love for any of these people or any human. So the fact that he actually gained some level of respect for Mereoleona is something I actually would have liked to see developed during a fight, but instead we actually end up rushing through it by having both fights in the same chapter. So yeah, both fights seemingly end at the end of this chapter. I mean, we don't know exactly if they have ended at this point. They could actually continue on to next week's chapter. But going off of what we saw at the end of the chapter, I'm guessing that we're going to go on to the next fight next week. But anyway, what's actually kind of interesting about the chapter, and which I was actually waiting to talk about until this point, is the fact that during the chapter, when we're going back and forth between the two fights, and we're seeing the inner monologue between Fugoyan and Mereoleona, we're actually seeing the backstory of the two characters as they grew up together and actually were training to become Magic Knights. And I'm actually really interested to see that, because we don't really know that much about the two characters, especially when it comes to them being siblings. Because when it comes to Fugoyan, we actually didn't get to spend that much time with him from his introduction, because literally almost as soon as he was introduced, he was put into a coma by Patry, so we didn't really get to spend that much time with him during the series. And then we got introduced to Mereoleona, and we ended up finding out more information about her than we ended up finding out about Fugoyan initially. But at the same time, we still don't know that much about her. So the fact that we actually get to see the two others' backstory as they're growing up in this chapter was actually really interesting. It was actually really cool when we actually see the backstory between the two characters. We end up finding out that when they got older, when they got to the point where they could actually get their grimoires and potentially become Magic Knights, when Mereoleona told Fugoyan that she had no interest in becoming a Crimson Lion and actually joining the Magic Knights, the two of them got in a fight. Like, they literally just got in a fight, and it was put down in history as, I believe it was called in the chapter, the Flaming Bloody Tuesday, something like that. And it's actually kind of interesting because they actually have a tidbit in the chapter where they say that Tuesday in Japanese is actually written as Fire Day. So it's actually kind of fitting that the two of them would fight in this all-out battle that would go down in history as, like, no, it was called Hot Bloody Tuesday. I think that was it. So yeah, it's kind of interesting that on a Tuesday of all days is the day they would fight the two probably strongest fire mages that we've seen in the entire series. But anyway, what's actually really interesting about the backstory is the fact that it leads up to the final part of the chapter where the two of them are in their inner monologue, and they both say, we see basically how much they respect each other, because they both say that the other is the one who deserves to be the strongest in the capital, not them. So yeah, it was actually, like I said, it's actually kind of cool to see exactly how much these two siblings actually respect and care about each other, and how much they actually see, how much like they actually admire the other one. But yeah, it's pretty much it for the chapter. It's it for the review. Like I said, I don't know exactly how I feel about the chapter. I mean, now that I actually done the review and I actually think about it, I might like it more than I dislike it. But at the same time, I'm still disappointed that we rushed through the Kaiser fight. I'm kind of happy that we did rush through the Mereoleona versus Veto fight, because like I said, I don't think Veto was a good opponent for her. But at the same time, I would have liked to actually see the development of Veto going from his anger and his hatred towards humans to somewhat respecting Mereoleona during the fight. So yeah, like I said, I'm a little bit split on exactly how I feel. I'm hoping next week's chapter is more clear for me. I actually enjoyed it a lot more than I did this one. But yeah, we'll just wait to see. But yeah, guys, that's pretty much it for the video. That's it for the review. Follow me on Twitter. The link to that is in the description down below. If you liked the video, drop me a like, subscribe to the channel. I greatly appreciate it. Comment down below your thoughts and theories, and I'll catch you guys later. Peace.